Listen closely listen closely to your own heartbeat for just a second. We really like to think of ourselves as singular, independent beings, right? Fully in charge of our physical and mental ships. But what if I told you that you're actually a walking, breathing ecosystem, literally a vessel for trillions of ancient microscopic passengers? I mean, since the dawn of humanity, and honestly long before that, shaping the primordial history of our entire planet, bacteria have been co-evolving with us. Today, we're going to explore a mystery that is unfolding right now, literally right beneath your skin.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to our explainer on the incredibly complex, deeply hidden world of bacteria and viruses inside us. Today, we're not just going to talk about the germs that make you sick, we're going to map out an incredible, ancient coexistence. We'll look at how these microscopic entities shape absolutely everything, from how you digest your lunch, to how you fight off infections, to the very thoughts and moods you experience every single day. So let's get started.
Section 1. The hidden world within. Let's take a biological tour into the depths of your internal ecosystem, shall we? To really understand our bodies, we have to look back at the history of bacteria. Long before humans ever walked the earth, bacteria were the undisputed rulers of the world. And as multicellular life evolved, well, these ancient microbes didn't just step aside, they actually moved in. Today, trillions of microorganisms live inside your digestive tract. This gut microbiome is this highly diverse, bustling community of bacteria, fungi, and viruses. And what's really fascinating is that your specific microbial fingerprint is completely unique to you. It was shaped by how you were born, the early foods you ate, the environments you've lived in, and your exposure to things like antibiotics. And they don't just sit there either. They're hard at work digesting complex carbohydrates we can't break down on our own, extracting vital energy, and regulating our metabolism. Section 2. The gut-brain connection. Now this is where things get a bit mysterious, because these microbes aren't just breaking down your food in the dark, they might actually be pulling the strings of your mind. We often think we need to get all our vitamins from our diet, but your gut bacteria are actually manufacturing them for you. For example, species like Lactococcus and Bacteroides are synthesizing vitamin K2, which is absolutely critical for neuroprotection and keeping your cognitive functions sharp. Then you have Lactobacillus fermentum producing vitamin B1 or thiamine. Thiamine is essentially non-negotiable for your nervous system. If your gut microbiome is depleted and you lack these specific bacteria, well, the resulting B1 deficiency is directly linked to anxiety and depression. Your microscopic passengers are quite literally producing the chemical building blocks your brain needs just to stay balanced. But they don't stop at just vitamins. There is a constant, incredibly complex chemical communication network operating between your gut and your brain, primarily running along a superhighway called the vagus nerve. Your microbes are actively producing neurotransmitters. They're also modulating your immune system to either protect your brain or, unfortunately, trigger distress. For instance, a beneficial bacterium called Faecalibacterium prosnitzi acts as a sort of peacekeeper. It increases the secretion of IL-10, an anti-inflammatory cytokine that protects your neurological health. On the flip side, though, if your gut falls into dysbiosis, meaning the bad bacteria overtake the good, certain gram-negative bacteria elevate a pro-inflammatory marker called IL-6. An elevated IL-6 doesn't just give you a stomach ache. It can actually cross over and impair emotional regulation in the brain, creating markers strongly linked to clinical depression and anxiety. It's like a microscopic war for your mood. Section 3. Decoding the immune system. So, if there are literally trillions of bacteria inside of us, why on earth isn't our body constantly fighting them? Let's shift over to the internal battleground. Our body defends itself using a highly coordinated, two-pronged military strategy. On one side, we have innate immunity. This is your body's rapid response force. It uses physical barriers and sentinel cells, like macrophages, to quickly identify and attack common molecular patterns found on pathogens. It's fast and it's very broad. On the other side, we have adaptive immunity. Now, this is your specialized, slow-burn intelligence agency. It uses B and T cells to recognize very specific antigens, and crucially, it creates a long-term memory of the invader. And recently, science has even discovered that the innate system has a sort of trained immunity, where those early responders actually learn from past battles. But with all this heavy artillery, a massive paradox emerges. How does your body know which bacteria to trust? With billions of helper and killer T cells patrolling the gut at any given moment, why don't they just attack everything in sight and cause massive nonstop inflammation? Well, the answer lies in an incredible mechanism of selective tolerance. Researchers at the Broad Institute used a powerful computational algorithm called the BOTA predictor to sift through huge amounts of bacterial DNA. They were looking for the exact protein fragments, or antigens, that our T cells are interacting with. And they discovered something amazing: the SUS-C antigen. This is a protein complex used by bacteria to transport nutrients. What's mind-blowing here is that healthy human T cells actively recognize this antigen, but instead of launching a full-scale attack, they intentionally stand down. They tolerate it. The immune system has essentially learned to identify the ID badges of helpful bacteria and give them VIP access to our gut. But when this system breaks down, the results are pretty severe. Daniel Graham from the Broad Institute summed it up perfectly. He noted, for people experiencing a flare in Crohn's disease, their T cells recognize this microbial antigen, but instead of exhibiting tolerance to it, they have an inflammatory response towards it. In inflammatory bowel diseases, that peace treaty is broken. The T cells start seeing these common, universally accepted bacterial fragments as deadly enemies. They flood the area with pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-17 instead of the calming, anti-inflammatory IL-10 we talked about earlier. Understanding this breakdown in trust could actually be the key to treating autoimmune diseases in the future. Section 4. Unmasking the human virome. Now, we've talked a lot about bacteria, but what about viruses? Let's travel even deeper, right into the solid tissues of our organs. This is wild because it completely shatters our traditional understanding of viruses. Normally, we look for viruses in bodily fluids like blood, saliva, or urine. But researchers recently conducted a massive multi-organ analysis using next-generation sequencing, and they mapped out the human DNA virome across solid tissues. These viruses aren't just passing through, they're actually taking up permanent residence inside our cells. We are talking about human DNA viruses establishing long-term persistence in the brain, the heart, the lungs, the liver, and the kidneys. The numbers here are just absolutely awe-inspiring. Researchers identified the DNA of 17 distinct eukaryotic viruses persisting at low copies right inside human cells. We see incredible alpha diversity in places like the lungs, liver, colon, and kidneys. What happens is that many of these viruses establish a chronic carrier state very early on in our lives, the imprint on our physiology. For example, even after a person has completely resolved an active hepatitis B infection and their blood tests show they are 100% clear, the HBV DNA can still be found secretly hiding out in the skin, heart, and lungs. These ancient viral passengers become a permanent living part of our biological makeup, subtly interacting with our host immune system for our entire lives. Section 5. Restoring the microscopic balance. With all this chemical warfare, immune negotiation, and viral persistence happening inside us, it's pretty easy to feel like a helpless bystander, but you're absolutely not. Let's move to our action plan. Step 1, eat fiber-rich and fermented foods. Foods like yogurt, lentils, and whole grains provide the prebiotics that feed your good bacteria, allowing those species that produce helpful vitamins and anti-inflammatory cytokines to thrive. Step 2, drink enough water and really try to cut back on ultra-processed foods, which can fuel dysbiosis and inflammation. Step 3, exercise regularly and manage your stress. Remember that gut-brain superhighway? Well, stress travels both ways. Calming your mind literally calms your gut. And finally, step 4, get adequate sleep and absolutely avoid unnecessary antibiotics. Don't get me wrong, antibiotics are life-saving, but they are also kind of like dropping a bomb on your internal ecosystem. Use them only when truly needed to prevent the tragic loss of your beneficial passengers. So, what does this all mean for us? The crucial takeaway is that we are not solitary individuals. We are complex, thriving worlds. We are ancient walking ecosystems where trillions of bacteria and hidden viruses are working, fighting, and cooperating to keep us alive. And as we continue to map these microscopic pathways, it really makes you wonder, what other undiscovered secrets are hiding right beneath your skin? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious, take care of your microbes, and I'll see you in the next one.